Yeah, so to give you an overview of the session agenda, first, we'll provide some housekeeping rules and then followed by the presentation of Dr. Jess Fernandez. That would be 20 minutes, and then the next 25 minutes will be solely for Q&A, open forum, and the youth voices. So in this session, you will be given time to ask Dr. Jess, and we will also ask you, and we want to hear your voices too regarding the presentation and other concerns that may arise during the presentation. And then the last 10 minutes will be for the session wrap up. So in the session wrap up, we'll be providing questions, and then we'll ask someone from the group to report back what has transpired from this session to the plenary. And then lastly, we'll have a group photo which will be taken by Abby, and a mentee survey, and then closing and return to the plenary. So some house rules. So please mute your microphones when you are not speaking. And then position your cameras properly during our group photo taking. And then always check the chat box for any instructions and announcements. So likewise, you may type your questions in the chat box or your comments and insights about this session. And then we also have this raise hand feature in Zoom, where you can click the raise hand feature to ask questions or share your thoughts live. So you just wait for us to acknowledge you, and then you can ask your question. So when you ask, please ask your questions concisely. And then later on, we will ask you to volunteer. So I'm expecting a raise hand later. So for the next slide, please, I will now introduce our respected speaker. So Dr. Jess Fernandez is currently the Deputy Director for Program of the SEAMEO Regional Center for Food and Nutrition, or RECFON, which is based in Jakarta, Indonesia. He oversees supervising the development and implementation of the center's cutting-edge programs, as well as establishing and maintaining functional strategic alliances with relevant institutions in the Southeast Asia. So in such capacity, Dr. Fernandez articulated the frameworks and implementation approaches for SEAMEO RECFON's 3 flagship programs, such as the Early Childhood Care, Nutrition and Education, the Nutrition Goes to School, and the Nutrition Goes to Workplace programs. So he also coordinated the formulation and writing of the center's 3rd 5-year development plan for the fiscal year 2021-2022 to 2025-2026. So before joining SEAMEO RECFON, Dr. Fernandez served as the Deputy Director for Program of the SEAMEO Regional Center for Tropical Biology, or BioTrop, from 2010 to 2018. He was also the Training Department Manager of SEARCA from 2003 to 2006. So his area of specialization include human resource and institutional development, organizational communication and management, strategic planning and program management, networking and collaboration, knowledge management, and creating systems-based solutions. So Dr. Fernandez earned his BS and MS degrees in development communication and PhD in community development from UPLB. So wow, that's a hefty. So without further ado, I will now turn over the screen to Dr. Jess for his presentation. Dr. Jess?
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much, Anna. Hello and good morning to the youth of Southeast Asia. I hope everybody is doing well. Am I getting loud and clear, Anna?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Yeah, great. So it is sunny and bright here in Jakarta in this morning. Usually it rains. It's already a rainy season here, but it's good that it's sunny and bright this morning. I salute everyone for being here because this is Saturday, and usually Saturday most of us will just be in bed or just relaxing, but you chose to be here and learn and have your voices be heard. This is something very nice, and I appreciate also our colleagues from SEARCA from inviting me here. It's always my pleasure to be a part of SEARCA, being also a staff in the past. When I was still there in UP Los Baños. So for today, I will just be sharing with you our experiences in our center on how we can secure nutrition conscious school children and adolescents using school-based nutrition promotion. Maybe I have to start by asking you first, like, when did you start learning about nutrition? Or like, did you learn nutrition when you were at school? Maybe you can show some thumbs, and so we can see how many of you really, oh, I don't know about nutrition until I get to college or study about biology, science, and agriculture, and nobody talks about it. Or even the family, is your family nutrition conscious, and so on and so forth. So these are questions that we would like to reflect on as I move on to my presentation. My goal is for you to look at schools as a partner for developing nutrition literacy among the youth, or engaging them as part of the development process for sustainable development in terms of food security, as well as other goals of the global goals that we have. So allow me now to share my slides, Anna. I hope I can share this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you see this? Okay. Can you now see the slides?
Yes, sir. Just put it in
Yes, sir.
presentation.
Okay, so it's now on a slideshow format, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so once again, this is a topic assigned to me, and how we can really secure a nutrition conscious young generation through the schools. And I'm very happy that the second plenary speaker has already talked about a lot of nutrition concepts and principles, and I will not be repeating that, but I'll just be focusing or narrowing down these kind of concepts and principles and how we apply them in our program that I will be sharing with you later on. So let me start by reminding us of the second sustainable development goal, which is achieving zero hunger. And I would like to emphasize three keywords here in terms of food, which is being safe, being nutritious, and being sufficient for everyone's access. And in fact, if you look at target 2.2, it talks about adolescent girls, or even like children and mothers, for that matter, to have access. And so we will not be experiencing any hunger at all. This is a very tall order from the United Nations and all the member states. But I think if everyone works together, then we will have to achieve this. We have really we have achieved some of this significantly in different levels in different countries. So going back to just defining our concepts, there are two terms that I would like all of us to really understand. Well, I'm not really be dealing much on food security because it has been discussed well by the plenary speakers, but I would like to focus on this terminology that we call triple burden of malnutrition. I don't know if you have heard about this, but this is something now which is a global phrase being used every now and then because of the cases of undernutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, as well as overnutrition. So when we talk about undernutrition, we're talking about stunting and wasting, and micronutrient deficiencies, as you have heard from Dr. Cho, it's all about like lacking in all the nutrients that we have, the vitamins and the micronutrients that our body needs just to grow and have the energy to really function well. And when we talk about overnutrition, we talk about obesity or overweight. So maybe now you start looking at yourself like, am I undernourished, or am I overnourished, or am I micronutrient deficient? So it's up to you now to assess that as we go along with our presentation. So these are terms that I would like to just remember. And again, I would like to give some overview of food security as well as undernourishment in the world right now, based on the 2020 report from the United Nations bodies. And Dr. Cho has already mentioned some of them, but I would like to emphasize that like about almost 10% of the world's population are undernourished. It means that we don't receive much of the calorie intake that we need just to function well. And then specifically, children under 5 years old are stunted about 21% all over the world because they don't get the right nutrition, or they are victims, or they suffer from repeated infections like diarrhea and so on and so forth. And in fact, there are about 10% or 9% of the world population that are severely food insecure. And you have heard about what food insecurity is, because there's no available, there's no access, and the food that they have are not safe and quality food. So that's how we define food insecurity. And just imagine, 1 in 4 people globally are moderately or severely food insecure. Just look into our own provinces or countries for that matter, or even in our communities, that you can see these are really happening, and these are not just made up statistics by the UN bodies. So trying to look into how our countries rank as far as food security index, you will notice that out of the 113 countries, most of us, if you would like to peg 60% as the passing mark, so like Indonesia, Myanmar, Philippines, Cambodia, and Laos PDR are below the passing mark, so to speak. But our neighbors like Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand, and even Vietnam just pass it in terms of the overall index of food security. But I would like to emphasize here, like, for example, if you look at Indonesia, no matter how big Indonesia is and also how much resources they have, they still low in food quality and safety, just having 49.6%. But looking into also affordability, as explained by Dr. Chu, it's amazing to see that Singapore has the highest index of 87.3 as far as affordability. We thought, like, I'd been to Singapore and I have spent like how many dollars just to eat a decent food. But then again, affordability index, they still rated high. And of course, the rest, you will see some of the data, very interesting. And this is something that we would like to reflect on as youth, as we would like to contribute to agricultural sustainability in our respective countries. Okay, just let me know if I'm talking too much, because like sometimes if I'm talking to the youth, I feel so passionate about expressing all these things to them, and it's a nice feeling being young, feeling young again whenever I'm with the youth. Okay, let's continue. Maybe you will ask, where do we find, or where does triple burden of malnutrition occur? And I just illustrate this in 3 or 4 levels, from the country level to the community level to the household level, as well as individual level. So you would see at the country and community level, usually overweight or obesity and undernutrition are occurring in different segments of the population. And this is primarily due to the kind of resource that are available to them, because we know that there are some countries that are deprived of natural resources, biodiversity, or perhaps the soil conditions are not good for agricultural production, and so on and so forth. So that is at the country and community level. When we look into the household level, overweight or obesity is prevalent among mothers, but underweight and stunted and micronutrition children exist in a household. And this could be attributed to some degree as far as socioeconomic and also cultural factors. Like, I don't know if you have experienced that in your family. Like, for example, there is sibling age gap, and then the distribution of food will determine whether like the eldest get more or the youngest get more, or even like gender priority in the family. Like in Indonesia, the father gets the best portion of the meal, or the best portion of particular meat or chicken, before anybody else can get that. So this is among the reasons why such malnutrition problems exist at the household level. But when you look into the individual level, all these forms of malnutrition can exist. Obesity, stunting, wasting, micronutrient deficiency, because of what? Eating habits and nutrition knowledge. So maybe you can ask yourself, like, what is my eating habits? So how much do I snack every time? So do I overeat or do I diet? Or like how much knowledge I know about nutrition, what to eat and what to not eat. There are a lot of things right now in the internet, but it needs to be validated because there are a lot of misinformation also existing in the internet. So just to give you a picture of where malnutrition or the triple burden of malnutrition exists, so you can now look it into 4 levels. Okay, so looking into our region, how do we fare as far as the global average on this malnutrition problems of stunting, wasting, and overweight, especially for under 5 children? This is a data from the Global Nutrition Report 2020, and you would see that our region has highest rate as far as these malnutrition cases are compared to the global average. And this is very alarming considering that there's so much work to be done to address these malnutrition problems. And in fact, at the country level, you would see this pie chart. This is from the Global Nutrition Report 2018. I didn't get the latest report, but just maybe the trend will be the same. As you will notice it, a lot of countries in our region, including Indonesia, Myanmar, Timor-Leste, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, are experiencing cases of anemia and stunting. But there are also malnutrition problem that is very dominant in a particular country, like in Singapore. Most of them are experiencing anemia only. But like look at Malaysia, the one in blue, all these malnutrition problems exist in most majority of the population: overweight, anemia, and stunting. For the Philippines, you would see that most of our malnutrition cases are about stunting. I might say maybe I also a victim of malnutrition because I didn't grow too tall. I'm just 163 centimeter, maybe just fine with me, I guess. But there are some people who are below this and not according to their age and according to their weight. That's how we define stunting. Yeah. So overall, you will see the situation of malnutrition in our respective countries. And what determines this food insecurity and malnutrition? There are a lot to consider. There are socioeconomic determinants, cultural determinants, political determinants, as well as ecological determinants. And you will notice that most of the determinants fall under the socioeconomic factors. And in fact, our previous speakers have already emphasized poverty as a main socioeconomic factor for food insecurity as well as malnutrition. But it's also would like to emphasize that illiteracy contributes much to this. Plus, of course, like disabilities, and as well as now that we have already encountered the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of research studies already shown how the pandemic has affected our food security as well as worsened the malnutrition conditions in our countries. But what I would like to also emphasize is the poor infrastructure that we have, as well as food wastage that we normally experience. I myself, every time I go to the mall and see a lot of people not eating all the food that they ordered, in Filipino, we call it like takaw tingin lang, you order a lot and then you never finish it. And then you would see in the garbage bin of the malls, you would see a lot of this food wastage. That's in fact, now in Europe, there is this kind of trend that people are scavenging food that are wasted or thrown away, but they're still good for eating. And this is one way to really address some food insecurity problems that we have. Going into the cultural aspect, you might be surprised that like race and ethnicity or even like customs and traditions are contributory to this kind of food insecurity and malnutrition problems that we have. In fact, in our region, for that matter, we have a lot of food taboos, I believe. So, like, what you can eat and what you cannot eat, because if you do that, something will happen to you, and also for the pregnant women and also for the kids, we we will have to say like, oh no, this is not yet good for this. She's so young to eat this. But then again, because there's no basis about it, these are just like traditions and taboos. And particularly, as I have mentioned earlier, gender bias or gender issues. Like I said, like priorities are the male more than the female, but there are some countries where the female are the one working to produce the food. Mothers, the housewives, are the one worrying always on where to get food and how to access them for the children. Political, we are very much aware of this one. Trade policies, civil unrest. Now we can see the cases in Ukraine and Russia, and there are like food embargoes coming in. We are experiencing some shortages just because of this kind of uncivil unrest or conflicts between countries. Plus, of course, the land use policies. Some countries have very clear land use policies. Some are very confusing. So the farmers are really confused on how they really have to maximize the land that they have. In the Philippines, we have this certification of land transfer, emancipation, and so on and so forth. But then again, our farmers still experience of like low productivity because they cannot maximize the land that they have. Of course, ecological factors, we have seen how natural disasters have damaged our food production, millions of pesos, millions of dollars, biodiversity loss, as well as land degradation and climate change. So it's so much to consider to have food security and also a nutritious lifestyle. But let's see how we can look at schools and promote healthy diets and lifestyle among the youth. Like I said, my goal in this presentation is for you to get engaged in school-based nutrition promotion activities. And because the young ones, the youth, are spending their time, 1/3 of the day is spent in schools, at school. So we look at the school as one learning venue for us to know more about healthy diets and lifestyle. So I will be discussing at this point the program that we have. We call it Nutrition Goes to School, or NGTS. So we conceptualized this 7 years ago, or 2016, and we are piloting it right now in Indonesia among primary, secondary, as well as vocational schools we have about 83 school partners in Indonesia. I will talk about it later on. I would like to emphasize that this program is really focused on building the character of the youth. I mean, those who are from elementary, you're talking about like from 8 years old or 6 years old until senior high school, about 19 years old, just to build the character towards acquiring or practicing good nutritional habits at school or at home. And the ultimate goal is that to improve their academic learning outcomes or performance and participation by acquiring this proper nutrition. So in this program, we also promote local-based approach in the way we give our intervention for food and nutrition. So in a nutshell, this is how I would like to define our program, but then I will have to go on and discuss with you how we implement this. So we use this DESPIS approach, and DESPIS is all about demand, supply, policy, and information system. So when we talk about demand, there's a demand for knowledge because there are a lot of knowledge gaps or information gaps, and also skills gaps. So we need to build capacities. This is the demand for food security as well as nutrition security. And when we talk about the supply, we talk about what are the available learning materials that can be accessed at school. What are the technical assistance that they can get so they can learn more about nutrition, as well as how governments produce or provide facilities for them. I will talk about that later. And in terms of policy, both at the national level as well as a provincial, district, regional, and even at the school level, we need commitment, we need good management, and we need advocacy to help us attain healthy schools and communities. Plus, of course, without information system, it's very hard to really communicate and advocate all these things. So information system plays a very vital role for all these three elements to function well and produce the goal that we like. Okay, just to let you know where our program exists in Southeast Asia. As I mentioned, we piloted this in Indonesia. As you can see, the map of Indonesia down below, we have 6 sites. Most of them are in Java Island, including Jakarta, and 1 in Kalimantan. You see this up. And we also have introduced the program in Timor-Leste. And just recently, we just trained 30 vocational technical school teachers in Cambodia, belonging to 5 schools, because we are trying to establish a model in Cambodia on NGTS with vocational and technical schools. And because we look at the graduates of technical vocational schools as a workforce in the future, so they really need to have good nutrition for productivity. Okay, so let's move on, learning more about how we implement NGTS with these 6 components that we have. So you can see that we have nutrition education, we have school gardening, we have healthy school canteen, of course, physical activities is included, we have hygiene and sanitation, and nutrition and entrepreneurship. So these are 6 components that we put together as well as far as what we think is needed to really increase nutrition literacy among our school children and adolescents. But there are more perhaps to be included, but then again, we just want to focus on this one. When you talk about these components and how these components can promote nutrition and healthy lifestyle among the school children and adolescents. So we have this framework. If you see the figure on the left side, we would like to produce awesome school children. So awesome school children means like active, well-nourished, and smart of me. This is some crazy acronym that we come up with, but the whole thing is like we all want to have awesome school children because the children will be the workforce in the future. And you would see that interventions are being made in both intracurricular as well as extracurricular. And the school environment plays a very critical role for this kind of intervention, as well as the policy and the management support from the school itself, and even from the local education office where the school is located or belongs to. Of course, the bottom line, the foundational thing is nutrition education and how both the intra and extracurricular are enforcing each other to create this kind of awesome school children. So going back to the components I just mentioned earlier, so this is how I would like to arrange the interrelationship and the influences of how these components interrelate or reinforces each other to produce our awesome school children. So you have this kind of positioning here, but for the purpose of our discussion this morning, I will just be focusing on the 3 components, which are nutrition education, school garden, and school canteen. Anna, do I have much more time, right?
Sir, we have around 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, great. So I'll just have to discuss fast, So let's talk about the nutrition component. So in our NGTS program, we deliver a 4-day training course to the teachers as far as all the components of the NGTS. And the product of this training is for allowing them to come up with an action plan or developing lesson plan to incorporate nutrition concepts for classroom and extracurricular activities. It's very amazing how people or teachers would realize, like, how can I integrate nutrition in math? How can I integrate nutrition in social science or in biology? Or perhaps biology is much easier, but in some other subjects, it might be like, ah, it's weird, something like that. But it's amazing to see the creativity also of the teachers when they learn about the concepts of nutrition. And there's also this kind of thing that we promote as a regular school activity, is that like eating together. So you can see the photo at the bottom. The guys in white shirt, this is not being gender sensitive, but because in Indonesia, most of the time the boys are separated from the girls. But there are some schools, of course, they can integrate, but for these purposes, like eating together, so there's a portion of the school ground where the boys eat together and the girls eat together on the other side. And you would see also on this lower right photo, you can see the plate in front of this school kid. So we also promote the balanced nutrition, the food pyramid, and we actualize that using this concept of a plate. So the plate is already divided, and each of the divisions are allocated for one particular food source, like carbohydrate, protein, fruits and vegetables, and so on and so forth. So in Philippines, we call it pinggang Pinoy, Filipino plate. In Indonesia, we call it piringku or my plate. So this is the easy way to educate, especially primary school children, on how they would see the concepts into application. So this is how we train them to always have these all food sources in one plate. So we also have this kind of best practice documentation and promotion. So all our school partners are encouraged to document their best practices. I will tell you about it later on as we are moving for this presentation. But this is how we do this. Dr. Cho mentioned about like incorporating nutrition in the agricultural system, but this is how we incorporate nutrition concepts and principles in the school system, both in the lesson plans as well as in the extracurricular activity. Okay, let's move on. Now we will be discussing about school gardening. And I think there's much more discussion with your group, SYF, because school gardening is something that you are promoting. We look at school garden as a medium for nutrition education because it enables the students to understand how plants are produced as a food source of nutrients and how do they harvest it. So during the training on NGTS, we invite our sister center, the SEAMEO Biotrop in Bogor, to give a lecture on basic gardening, from plot gardening, container gardening, hydroponic gardening, and including aquaculture cultivation, and so on and so forth. So if you would see that these are some of the students, our students from partner schools that are engaged in simple gardening. Even the primary school kids are learning how to do simple hydroponics. And the photo on the left side below is one of our partner schools that have used their rooftop as a garden because they don't have any land to produce it. Or they also have, they're practicing some vertical gardening techniques for this component. In fact, our center, based on the experiences of our partner schools in Indonesia, we have come up with this book. It's a compilation of nutrition education lesson plans using a school garden. So we have this for different levels. So they are from primary level and also from secondary level. And these are now being used. This is now being used by some of the schools beyond our pilot sites when they would like to teach school garden or including nutrition or using school garden as a medium for teaching nutrition education. Let's talk the last component, but not the least, the school canteen component. The school canteen, as you know, this is a very potent learning venue for nutrition and hygiene and sanitation education, as well as they serve as an outlet for the harvest of the school garden. The kids um, sell them, or the school get the harvest and process the food and sell them as meals in the school. And that's why if you see it, the school canteen also holds some cooking and food processing demo for the children. And in fact, some of the schools, and even in Southeast Asian schools, they have this kind of school feeding program and other related activities that are done through the school canteen. And some of the schools, if you see the photo on the right side, this is one Indonesian school. They just put one store like this as a mirrored cabinet. I don't know how you call it, but they said that they put wrapped meals inside, and this is all for children from poor families. They can just grab one package for their lunch, and somehow the schools get the produce from the school garden to provide this kind of intervention to those who are needing such kind of help. But of course, we always promote culturally relevant local foods, and this is very evident in almost all countries in Southeast Asia when we do implement a healthy school canteen. If I may also advertise it, we already have this kind of manual, a Canteen Sehat Sekolah or Healthy School Canteen, but this is in Bahasa Indonesia. But then again, recently we team up with other SEAMEO centers, including SEARCA, and 5 more SEAMEO centers in Myanmar, in Brunei, in Malaysia, and Indonesia to come up with this compilation of healthy school canteen policies, programs, and best practices in Southeast Asia. So there are lessons learned here. It will be made available by next year, early part of next year, from our website and also on a print format. So just to summarize how these 3 components really add up to producing an awesome school children, developing a healthy diet among them. So when you talk about nutrition education, it's really about awareness and knowledge enhancement. Because like I remember, I asked you the first question, when did you start learning nutrition? We believe that the earlier we start educating our kids, school children about nutrition, the more that they will develop the habit and carry out this habit until the adulthood. And the school gardening, we all know that there are a lot of skills involved in school gardening, and we call it is a lifelong skills development, even before or outside, like even school children that will be going out of school just because of poverty. We have a lot of out of school youth, but then again, having these lifelong skills will enable them to produce and generate income on their own outside the school. So this is something that we would like to really implant to all the school children early. There's no reason where you cannot access food, but if you know how to cultivate them, you have easy access and supply of it anytime you want. If you have a small land area or just a container or a pot, you can produce vegetable and other fruit vegetables like tomatoes and so on and so forth. And of course, the Healthy School Canteen is a venue for changing behavior and establishing proper eating habits among the kids. So we normally, like all the school canteen that we are supporting and among our partner school, they have already established the school canteen task force to monitor how kids are eating, what are their food choices, and how they practice the proper or balanced nutrition when they eat at the canteen. Of course, there are a lot of things to be developed and improve on this aspect, but we have already started, and that's the first, I mean, the important thing to do. But then again, you would say, is this enough? Is it easy to implement? So there are a lot of challenges, in fact, and that's why we would like to call your participation as a youth to engage yourself in school-based nutrition promotion activities because of these challenges. So when talk about human resources, financial resources, physical resources, policies, and environment as challenges. So for human resources, of course, teachers were not trained as far as nutrition is concerned. So this aspect is new to them. That's why we need to incapacitate them or to build their capacity as far as learning about nutrition concepts and principles. And we now know that how many, like, for example, I remember when I was a school kid, I only have about 9 subjects or so. But then now you have like more than 14 or 12. And you will see how hectic the workload of a teacher to handle how many students now. Like, for example, in the Philippines, like you're handling about 50 students in one class. And to check all this exam and so on is going to be very hectic for you and taxing for a school teacher. Of course, we look at the weak leadership in the school. There are some school teachers that do not pay attention as far as nutrition status of the students, but there are those that who are. That's why we keep them as our champions. And there's also less involvement of the school community. When I talk about school communities, I talk about parents, the personnel, the communities around them, and even the local government around them. Plus, of course, there are some students, they look at like school gardening or like being assigned a school canteen or studying nutrition outside of mathematics or science is not good because that's additional thing for us to look into. But that's the challenge that we have. That's why we come up with this program. As far as financial resources concerned, we all know what budget can do to make successful school-based nutrition promotion program. And for physical resources, we all know also when we don't have the land to cultivate or any space where we can establish our school canteen, it will not be very promising for any of the students to learn more about nutrition only if in the classroom. And then there are also inadequate hygiene and sanitation facilities. Not all schools have washing facilities or even toilets are not functioning well. When we talk about nutrition, hygiene, and sanitation are very critical component for the overall health well-being of students. Plus, when we talk about physical resources, we talk about the challenge on access to nutrition-related materials and school garden inputs. Policies, you might be surprised that nutrition has not been considered as a separate subject in all countries in Southeast Asia as far as school curriculum is concerned. So they do not require that. Most of the governments in Southeast Asia look at nutrition could be just an intra-curricular activity for the schools, but not as a subject to teach separately. And then not all, very few, in fact, only Malaysia has a mandate for all schools to have school canteen. But when you go to Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and other Southeast Asian countries, you would not actually see a very functional or healthy school canteen. And this is a challenge for kids when they eat. That's why they are also victims, or not victims, but they are lured by street vendors outside the school. And in fact, there's no clear policy also to prohibit street vendors to sell food to school children. The problem is we don't know how food safety, the safetiness and quality of the food that the vendors sell. That's why obesity and other malnutrition problems exist among school children just because of no quality monitoring of the food being sold by the street vendors. And lastly, environmental. So you know, if you are an agriculturist, how important having a fertile soil is. And also in Southeast Asia, we have so erratic weather conditions and even some emergency conditions. Like in the Philippines, we receive about like 26 typhoons annually, and flooding occurs every now and then. And also outside of school, there are vendors. So that's quickly, Anna, just to summarize, just opportunities. We have created a Southeast Asian-based nutrition promotion working group. These are consists of representatives from the Ministries of Education, Health, academic institutions, and international organizations and NGOs to look into promoting nutrition in school. And we have come up with this website where we can put materials for teachers to learn about it and even students to access them to learn more about nutrition. And we also have a monitoring system to see how our school partners are progressing with the project. Plus, of course, I think you might be interested about this. We created this competition we called Youth Creativity in Nutrition or Youth Creation. We started this in 2018. And this is all about making a video on the health practices. And also last year, we talked about STEM in nutrition, in adolescent nutrition. And well, this is just one photo from the Philippines. They look at spirulina as a superfood for century. So these are some opportunities for the youth to get involved. And plus, lastly, we have established these learning opportunities through volunteer engagements or LOVE program. We would like to really encourage you to be a part of our program. You can volunteer on our NGTS program in the different sites, whether in Cambodia, Timor-Leste, in Indonesia, or for next year in Malaysia and in Philippines. So I end up here, and I would really love to hear your questions and opinions about this presentation I made. Thank you very much, and back to you, Anna.
All right, thank you, Sir Jess, for the awesome presentation. We would like to know more about how to be awesome children, but I want to hear first from our participants if you have questions. Actually, I have one comment here from Mr. Brian Ricardwola. So he was surprised that Indonesia is in low food security ranking. So he said that there are so much sources there.
Yeah. So that's a question?
Actually, that's a comment, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Surprised daw po siya.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm also surprised. You're not the only one surprised. This is also one thing that now the government is looking into how they will have to increase their food security index as far as availability as well as affordability and the quality. I think the Indonesian government is now really investing a lot in agriculture for food production.
So if there are any more questions, you can raise your hand or type it in the chat box. So Abby posted here the open forum topics. So if there are now no questions, maybe we can ask Sir Jess or our participants here. So especially in the Philippines, so what are the challenges you have experienced or observed in accessing safe and nutritious food at home or in school? So a while ago, Dr. Chu presented the food security dimension. So we have food access and food utilizations here. So anyone who can share their thoughts from the group? So can anyone push the raise hand button? Because we'll be assigning one volunteer to report the discussion points in this parallel session to the plenary. Anyone? Hello? Children, do you want to be awesome? Anyone? Or maybe you can type your questions, your answers rather. So what are the challenges that you experienced or observed in accessing safe and nutritious food at home. So this may be a normal scene or during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So anything special in accessing safe and nutritious food at home? Maybe you can share some insights here. Or what can you learn from the SEAMEO RECFON's Nutrition Goes to School program that you might think is applicable in the local context or your area? Can I call someone? Yeah, there's a chat here. From Lisa Mastrili. So one of the challenges observed in the Philippines is the high cost actually. Especially now during the inflation. Sir Romnick Velin is raising his hand. Sir?
Hello, naka-open yung mic niya.
Hello? Romnick, are you there? Oh yeah, may I call on Maxine Bianca? Are you there? Can you share your thoughts on these two questions?
Opo.
Hi, Maxine.
May audible po.
Hello? Hello?
Hello po.
Hi, yeah. So,
Am I
can you share
audible po?
your thoughts on these topics?
The first question po. Can I
Mhm.
answer the first question po?
Yes, please.
Some of the challenges experienced or observed. What I think po is the challenges experienced or observed in accessing safe and nutritious food at home or in school. Oh. Siguro po yung economic. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Maxine.
Siguro po lack of economic access po. Or
So, may I ask from where are you in the Philippines?
sa Manila po. Ano po?
Hello?
Sorry po, I am having trouble with my mic po.
So yeah, okay. So maybe you can chat your answer. So I will read Marie's answer here. So basically, lack of supply in a way that insufficient local production hindrances opportunity to access a more sufficient and nutritious food supply. So hence, I want to recommend that we should start to practice growing our own food for a more sustainable and safer food supply. So actually, that's Doc Jess is also promoting a while ago. So we have, and Dr. Cho, I think in her presentation during the plenary, so she also stressed that the youth should plant more or be not vegan, but we should have a plant-based diet. So we should promote school gardening, community gardenings for a more stable supply of food. So any more?
Maybe just to react to that, Anna, if
Yeah,
you don't
Dr.
mind.
Yes,
Yeah?
please.
Well, there's always a question whether like we need to promote plant-based or animal-based school
Mhm.
gardening. For example, in some of our school partners, they don't really just look at gardening for like crops, but they also raise some small animals, like even aquaculture, fish.
Yeah.
This is something that we would like to encourage the youth. It's not just like plant-based, but because we also need some animal protein. But within the school context, you can see what is applicable and what is feasible for you to produce and for the students to handle, something like that.
Thank you, sir. Just we have, excuse me, Anna, we have Brian and another one raising his hand or her hand, Virgie.
Yeah,
So we
please.
go to Brian first.
Yeah, Brian, please turn on.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you for the chance to given to me. I am from Indonesia, actually in North Sulawesi, Manado. So, sorry. The people in my area really heavily on pesticides and like kind of that for agricultural crops. So I worry about the quality of the food that we are consuming. As a lecturer in science education, I try to educate my family, try to educate the people around me. Mostly they are farmers about organic farming, but they are worried about crop failure. Also, the government is still not paying attention to this case, this topic. So I think this is the problem that I just cannot fix it by myself, but need support from government also. That's my experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Brian. Doc Jess, do you want to react to that?
Thank you, Brian. I think this is not only in your area, but in most areas wherever we have agricultural production happening. And this is why the importance of promoting school garden, because from the school, we can be sure that whatever the school children produce are safe because they are guided. Of course, there are a lot fertilizers to be used, but then one component in school gardening is really the use of compost. And then we also teach them to do compost making so they can have much more safer produce later on. But on a wide scale, definitely, if you want to have much more production and allow a lot of people to be able to eat, then you need to really boost production. And that's why some are really applying some insecticides and so on to protect the harvest later on. But at the small scale, this is something that we can do at the school level. And for that, and we transfer whatever skills that the students get to the household level. So the the students, the youth become the change agent to influence the members of the family to do healthy production at home. That's what my take on the comments, Anna.
Thank you, Sir Jess. So how yeah, sorry. Virgie, you're raising your hand.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Good morning po.
Good morning po. I'm in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah, so do you have anything to share to the group?
Yeah, I just want to share because I've been staying here for quite long time. So I observed that the food, the veggie, and the essential food here is cheaper than compared to the Philippines. So once I watched the news in the daily news in Malaysia, I saw that the youngsters and or youth, they teach them how to become farmer. That's why maybe the food is so cheap, especially the we call it spring onion, sibuyas. We can buy here only 1 ringgit and 90 cents is how much in peso? I think 11 peso 1 ringgit. So the government here is, the government is really exposing. They expose to the youngsters or youth to plant their own food, because the food they will plant, if if marami o maraming nagtatanim, the food is become cheaper.
It's all about the principle of
Man.
demand and supply. And it's all about government policies. If these are not clear and it's not supportive of what communities or individuals can do, it will also be a big challenge to sustain. So it's really a multi-sectoral concern to be able to produce food and also ensure nutrition of the population.
Mhm. So for the last question, to everyone, so
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Miss Virgie. So, what lessons from SEAMEO RECFON's Nutrition Goes to School program do you think would be applicable to your local context? So maybe one from the Philippines, because the program is in Indonesia. So how do you think we can replicate or apply the NGTS program in the Philippines?
I see Eliana's hand raised earlier.
Hi, Eliana.
Good morning po. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I would like to share some insights of what Dr. Fernandez has shared this
Mhm.
morning. Before I wait. So the most, I think, applicable strategy that can be applied to schools here in the Philippines. Well, it is very prominent that we can see in public schools that there are school feeding programs here, and they are very efficient because the school really tracks on students who are not maintaining their weight. And I have experienced this when I graduated from a public school, that some of my classmates really um, improve their nutrition when they receive these kinds of benefits from the school. And one thing that I have learned, and it's kind of an innovation, if some schools really offer students good quality food, like some canteens, they just produce I cannot say that every school has a nutritional um, balanced diet, but I can suggest that some foods or some school can um, provide a nutritional diet for the students, because sometimes some school cannot some students do not bring their own food, so they can rely to the school canteen. So the school canteen should be well educated on how food can be produced, and food that are produced are nutritional for the students to gain benefit from these. And that is one way that I can see that Dr. Fernandez or the program can really apply, most especially to schools here in the Philippines. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eliana. So, Doc, just do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Aliana. In fact, in most of the schools that we work with, and also in most governments in Southeast Asia, they have already this policy on like DepEd. They have this in the Philippines. What what they call this? What foods can be sold? Because there's the traffic light policy, green, yellow, and red. So you can see that in the DepEd as far as healthy school canteen is concerned. And it's also required that all vendors or kiosks in the school canteen should be trained and get their food hygiene and sanitation certification, as well as a training on nutrition, food combination, and things like that. But the challenge is how these things are monitored and implemented. Because we have the mechanisms already, it's all about implementing them. And that's why the school plays a very critical role on the monitoring for compliance of all these policies and regulations of ministries of education as well as ministries of health in the different countries. But that's a good point, to raise that. How can we ensure nutritious food to be sold in school canteen, and training, capacity building, and more awareness. We would like to see students to be the one policing the whole thing, so they can report which kiosk is selling mamantika or fatty food, and which kiosk is selling really good food, and that's would help the whole school to implement the regulations well. That's for me, Anna.
Yeah, so for the last question, we have Mr. Agus Setioko. Hello, Sir
Yes,
Agus. Yeah.
yes. Okay. Thanks very much for the time given to me. I'm Agustinko from Yogyakarta, Indonesia, Dr. Fernandez. Basically, I totally agree with the program of NGTS, the nutrition education, school garden, and school canteen. But I still have suggestion, maybe, which is I hope that it can support the program. First, we also have to consent to the parents, because parent is also important key factor to support this program, because in Indonesia we lose so many fertile lands and change to be industrial sector, and based on my experience, my parents also farmers, but they always say to me, don't be a farmer in the future. Please move to the city and work as an industrial employer or anything, but don't be a farmer anymore. So I think it's really important to change parent mindset to support this program. And the second, for the school garden, is it's not easily to applicate in the central city, because in Jakarta especially, many students prefer to school in the center of the city than the rural place. So it's so difficult to apply a school garden, because in the city we know that there is not enough land to do school garden. But maybe we can hold agriculture without land, or we call it a hydroponic garden. So even in the city we don't have enough land, but this program can be done. And for the last program, school canteen, it's better for us if we can provide a local food, for example, from Yogyakarta or Kulon Progo, popular with black. Yeah, it's nutritional food from cassava. So if the school canteen can provide it to the children, in the school, I mean that it will support our program to promote healthy food for the children. I think it's enough for me. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you, Sir Agus, for sharing your thoughts. Any last words from Sir Jess regarding that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Agus. So those are things that are very important to consider. In fact, we have already considered most of them in our school garden, school canteen program. If you have seen in my presentation, we really promote culturally relevant food that are indigenous to the area. And we also promote different kinds of gardening techniques, not just plot gardening. And we also in fact, in most of the governments, especially for vocational schools, the SMK, Agus, the government is really encouraging people, students, to engage in agriculture. So there's a lot of things to be done for SEARCA, for that matter, as an agricultural center, to promote that, like a choice, a profession of choice, to make agriculture as a profession of choice among the youth. The same thing with, because this is also the overall goal of SEAMEO as an organization, we create this advocacy to have education as a profession of choice, but the education could be in either any aspect of learning, like agricultural, food, nutrition, and so on and so forth. But we need people to teach. We need people to advocate something and to change behavior of the future generation. And I hope through the presentations that I made, we can see how potent schools are as a development partner, as well as how the youth can really maximize the school system and the school community to engage in food security as well as nutrition security for the future of our youth. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Doc Jess and the participants. So we have so many comments here in the chat box, but I hope Abby is what to say? Abby is compiling all these comments. So may I ask everyone to please turn on your cameras for a group photo before we return to the plenary. Abby will assist us in capturing the screenshot. So we are now 99 in this room.
Yes, and we have 4
Pages.
sets of photos to print
So are
screen. Okay,
most of
just give
them
me.
mostly from the Philippines, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
these are the
Okay.
awesome children from the Philippines.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
Abby, please.
okay, so yes, for the first panel, please hold on to your brightest smiles. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, hold on. Let me just save that. Okay. Okay, next set. So we have a lot. Okay. Kindly open your videos. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. We also posted a Mentimeter link, so you can also post there your answer to one of our questions when you go back to the plenary. Okay, so next set of people, ayan, third slide na tayo. Kindly open. Okay. I think we have na everyone. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, again, thank you so much. So before we go back to the plenary, so may I ask for the volunteer who will be presenting the outputs of this session? Anyone?
Oh,
so who's the most awesome among the group?
Go, go, go. They said that the youth are very aggressive and
Yeah.
responsive. Come on. Be awesome.
Yeah, Doc, just do you want to call on someone?
Oh, wow. That's a very big task. I think we need to just have a volunteer. Yeah, for those who gave a chat message, maybe we can choose from among them. Like, who are these? Let me see. Romnick or Aliana. Aliana is hard. So these are Melissa, Marie. Oh, so these are the choices, Anna.
Yes, don't worry, I'll share my notes with you. I've been taking notes.
And
Yeah.
an incentive for the person who will volunteer, right, Abby?
That is right. Thank you for reminding me. Also,
Yes, there's a prize
Abby
for
will
it.
be giving a bag.
Okay. Because of my virtual background, let me.
Wow, that's great.
Yes, but we do have a bag. This is from Uniqlo. You can see. So we have a merch printed out also for the Southeast Asian Youth Fest. So we'll give that to our volunteer.
Yeah, volunteer. Don't worry. Abby will give you the notes.
Yeah.
Good day.
Miss Virgie, are you raising your hand to volunteer?
That one is a long time ago, a few minutes time. Sorry, not now.
Yeah,
So
so
maybe I can request, can we request Agus from Indonesia?
yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, Agus, can you present the discussion for this group? I think you have a lot
Yeah,
of
that would be 5 to 7
Yes.
minutes.
in your mind. Yeah,
Okay, I will try it.
yeah,
Thank
good.
you, Sir Agus. So maybe Abby, you can post here the links to the plenary. So we can go back to the plenary now. We just have to leave this room and then Abby will post the link to the
Let me
plenary.
just share with Agus my notes very quickly. Ayan.
Okay.
Just the link to the notes. Let me know if you got it, Agus. I sent it as direct message.
Right.
And then, okay,
Yeah,
everyone,
I got it.
okay.
Thank you, Sir Jess, Sir Agus.
Thank you very much,
for
and we'll
in this room.
see you soon in the plenary.
Yeah, see you.
Thank you, Sir Jess. Thank you, everyone.
Yep.